Hi, I'm Frankie, and in this video I'll share how you can programmatically set up Azure AI Search resources in Visual Studio Code. Just before we get into the code, there's a few prerequisites that you're going to need. You'll need a created Azure AI Search service. You'll need an Azure storage account with a blob storage container that contains the data we plan to use. And you'll need an Azure AI Foundry resource with a deployed AI embedding model. This will be used to create our vector embeddings for our Azure AI Search Index. If you don't already have these created, I've added links in the description to help you set these up. Now quickly in Azure, I want to share these three resources that I have with you so you see what they look like. This is my Azure Search service that I have set up. I'll need the URL in just a moment when we check out the env file. This is my storage account that I'll be using. I have a container in here called Frankie's Bakery Product Catalog with a list of JSON files that are all files related to a product for a fictional business that I run called Frankie's Bakery, where we make cookies, brownies, breads, things like that. Azure AI Foundry, I have a deployed text embedding 3 small model, which is an open AI model that can create in vector embeddings from text. It's called this name with Frankie's Bakery at the end. Now let's get into the code. We're looking at the env file that we're going to be using here. Now it's super important to know you should never share your secrets with anyone. You're only seeing them because I'm going to be deleting all these resources by the time you see this video. So first we have our search resource with its key, we have our storage connection, and we have the AI Foundry resource URL, the AI Foundry resource URL key, and then the name of our deployment and the name of the model that we're using for that deployment. Here's an example of what those JSON files within that list of products, so we have an idea of what we're looking at. It's just got simple information, name, description. It's all dummy data for the sake of the way things are going to be mapped. This is the first one that we're going to get into. So when you go to set this up yourself, you'll probably want to create a Python virtual environment. This is using the Azure Python SDK. The 3 packages you're going to install is Azure Search Documents, Azure Identity, and the python.env, which is going to be used to bring in our environment variables. So there's a list of imports here that are important. You'll bring in your .env file, and then we bring in our environment variables. The first thing you got to do anytime you are using some of these Azure SDKs is you need some sort of authentication involved. We're going to be using the Azure Key Credential. In this circumstance, we have our Azure Search Key. There is the option for Managed Identity. We're not using that in this time. I've had set up some prefix information so it's easy to repeatedly create resources, which this will be where the index name is, data source name, indexer name, some descriptions for the index and the indexer, and now we get into the meat. So this is the first big step is we're going to be creating an index. And in this particular file, we're not going to be working with vectors at all. We're sticking to full text search because it's a bit simpler, easier to understand. Once we create that, then we'll move on to the way we can create vectors. So when we go to create a search index, first we need a search index client. Then we define all of our fields. This is our opportunity in the time where we get to choose, is a field going to be searchable, sortable, the different types of fields. I'm creating another video in the future that will talk all about how the fields work and how you can query using different types of fields when it's relevant. For example, with a long field with descriptions, you don't necessarily need to, sort based on a super long text field. It's not really very helpful. So you set up all your search fields here. Then we create our index, defining the index with the search index, and then actually creating or updating it. So this is our final result that we get back when we create the index. Next is our data source. Data source is where our actual data is coming from. So this is going to map data from our blob storage container to our index. And our indexer is going to be the actual resource that makes that connection happen. actually does the indexing itself. So we define the indexer client. We have our container that has the Frankie's Bakery product catalog with all of those JSON files associated with it. We set up our data source connection using Azure Blob Storage Connection with our container that is added there. And then we can create our data source using the indexer client create, read, or update data source connection. This creates the data source within our Azure AI Search service. Lastly, we need to create the indexer, which will tie that information from the data source to the index. In this circumstance, since we have a bunch of JSON files within our container, we need to set up some additional configuration that tells the indexer that it needs to parse the files as JSON specifically. So we have this parsing mode JSON, and we tell it to extract all the content, but also some of the metadata. We want to know the titles of the actual files themselves. And then we put it all together right here with the indexer, search indexer, and we put in the name of our indexer, description, our target index, the data source, and the indexing parameters. Then this is where we actually create it, and we should all be set up. And we'll run this. So your index is created, our data source is created, and our indexer is created. Now let's go back, we'll refresh, and see there is our new index. Right now it says 0 documents, it just got created, so it still needs a little bit of time to populate. We'll see our indexer and our data source. Should now be able to go into our index and query in it and see that our data is coming back. Now right now, the way we have this set up is that this is all just full text search. So you would use this type of configuration if you just want to search for items based on specific keywords. But if we want to set up more semantic search capabilities using vectors, then let's set that up. So here now we're going to look at this next file. There's a little bit more involved here because when it comes to setting up the vectorization, we have a vector search profile with a specific algorithm we need to set up. We have a new field that we're going to add to our index. We have a skill set that we're going to add. So let's run through these real quick. We bring in our same environment variables with the notable change here being we're bringing in our embedding model, our embedding deployment. We're now creating a cognitive services account that's going to be necessary for our skill set. We're going to add 2 new fields, this merged text field and the content vector field. And really what these are is the content vector field is going to be the actual vector itself. The merged text field is a field we're going to create so that we can see the actual text that's being vectorized in its textual state. So the content vector, in order to set it up, needs to have a set of dimensions. It needs to have a search profile. The search profile needs to be defined. We have a vector search class that's being created. And it has a vector profile, which will have the algorithms set up. The algorithms uses this standard algorithm, HSNSW. It's hierarchical something. Honestly, I forget the name, but it is a standard algorithm that's used for vectorization today. Then we set up our connection to Azure AI Foundry so that the embedding model can embed the queries that come in so that they can then be compared to all of the vectors that we have in our index. Once this is set up, it associates with our content vector, and then we create our index. The data source, nothing changes. It's still just connecting to our Azure storage account. And then next is our skill set. This skill set is what's going to help the indexer understand how to take data and vectorize it so that it can properly be added to our index. So there's two different skills that are happening in our skill set. The first one is the merge skill, where we're taking information from the description and information from the tags, and we're combining them all together. So when somebody is searching, making vector queries, they're going to really be looking at the vectorized information from the description and all the tags. And that is what should be included in our merged text field. So first, the merge skill. It merges description, tags. It creates what's called a combined text field in this merged skill output. For the next skill that we have, skill number 2, the embedding skill, we're using our Azure AI Foundry embedding model to take the combined text field, so the output from our first skill, and putting it in a new target field called embedding. Then we'll add these to a list called skills, and then we'll create our skill set right here. This is the definition, and this is the creation. Finally, we come down to our indexer, where in the indexer we now need to add the skill set in. We also need to add some additional output mappings because we added the embedding from our second skill set into the embedding model. And this output mapping is now going to take the embedding and map it to the content vector model, content vector field that we have in the index. And then we also map the combined text field, which combined the description and the tags into the merge text field, again, so we can see the actual text itself. Then we create that indexer right here. So let's take a look at what this looks like. Our name for this one should be Frankie Bakery Demo with Vectors. Our index is created, our data source is created, our skill set is created, and finally our indexer. Let's take a look at the portal. And we can see in our indexes, we have our with vectors index, our indexer, which we see ran successfully, the data source for the vectors, and we should have a new skill set as well. Here's our skill set. Let's make a query and see this come back with some data. And we'll see here's the information. If we want to see the vector content come back, we can add that field in, search Explorer, and see the information from our vector. We can also see in this example too, the merged text field that we have, where this lists buttery cookies packed with crunchy macadamia nuts and has seasonal, which is the product of the description and the tags. And that's how you can set up Azure AI Search resources in Visual Studio Code. If you have any questions, please leave them in the comments below. I answer every question to help as many people as I can. If this video was helpful for you, I'd appreciate if you liked the video and subscribe to the channel if you want to see more content like this. Thank you so much, and I'll see you in the next one.